Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's session, Operate a More Effective SOC with a Threat-Informed Mindset. I'm Yael Matias. I head product marketing here at Hunters, and I'll be today's host. And very happy to be joined by our two speakers today. First of all, Jon Baker, who's the director of the Center for Threat-Informed Defense. Hi, Jon.
Hey, welcome everybody.
And Ofer, who's a VP of product here at Hunters. Hi, Ofer.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, it's great to have you both. And for those watching the session, don't be scared by the fact that I'm currently sharing a screen with slideware. We will spend a few minutes at the beginning of the session setting the stage, introducing the Center for Threat-Informed Defense, as well as Hunters and Hunter SOC platforms that we know what we're going to be talking about. But very soon we'll move to the more conversational format between our two speakers who have a lot to share on the fireside chat part of the agenda. So without any further ado, let's get started. And Jon, take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for having me. I thought I'd start with just a little bit of context. So as was mentioned, I'm the director and co-founder of the Center for Threat-Informed Defense. A few years ago, MITRE created a subsidiary in 2019 to focus on engaging with industry directly. MITRE has this long history, nearly 65 years at this point, of solving problems for a safer world, but doing that for the US government. We launched MITRE Engenuity so that we could focus on working directly with industry to solve some of the most critical problems and challenges out there. My organization and my team is the Center for Threat-Informed Defense. Go to the next slide. Where within the center, we bring together industry, sophisticated security teams from around the world to solve problems, leveraging MITRE's technical resources, all working as a nonprofit in the public interest. Oh, there you go. And so when you take a look at what we've done over the last few years, we've built up a membership of about 30 organizations, deliberately bringing in perspectives from around the world. So we're global in nature, and we're deliberately cross-sector. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure we have a good understanding of the most pressing challenges and problems. And then we want to leverage those perspectives and those expertise to solve them. And so together, what we're really trying to do is improve cyber defense at scale, right? As it says here, we're specifically non-governmental. We're trying to kind of reach into industry to understand the big problems and challenges and solve them together with industry. So after 3 years, what we've ended up with is a repeatable, very scalable approach to developing R&D with industry. I always say that it's member-powered. We run, I think of it like an engine at the heart of the Center for Threat-Informed Defense, where we're always looking for problems, challenges that cyber defenders face. We work to systematically understand those and then develop solutions together to solve them. When we're done with any given project, we publish it. It's open and freely available for the world. This year, we launched an affiliate program. Hunters is one of our first affiliates. The affiliate program was specifically designed to kind of harness the innovation of some of the kind of early adopters of threat-informed defense and really try to accelerate threat-informed defense across the community. Ultimately, our affiliates end up working closely with us with kind of early access to our research program, sort of direct engagement with our research teams to help kind of drive and improve what we do, but also show the world how the work that we've done in the center can be used to improve threat-informed defense. So the affiliates play a really important role for us in accelerating that global adoption of threat-informed defense.
And we are Hunters. If you're not familiar with Hunters, we're a SOC platform startup aiming to replace the traditional and legacy SIEMs. Established in 2018, about 160 people with development centers in Tel Aviv, with presence in Boston and London, and backed by some of the world's best VCs. What we're really trying to do is bring a fresh approach to solving the security operation problem. Security operations are notoriously loaded with burden in operating the operational machine, feeding the tool that's supposed to help them with endless amount of resources, problems from getting the data into the system in a single place, and continuing the data engineering work, trying to figure out how to detect different threats that keep evolving across evolving types of attack surfaces, requiring a lot of different knowledge, every single infrastructure that the company or organization has, understanding how to investigate threats effectively, and getting things in the right order, putting the most important things in front of an analyst and minimizing the time to know and trying to triage, and understanding what to do in those ever evolving, becoming more popular events where you have an emerging threat like a log4shell, and you're trying to scramble to understand what should you do and what to look at. That's what we're seeing with every single team that we've talked to. And our approach is to try to use technology to beat these problems. So the approach that we're taking is trying to automate these problems as much as possible, and from starting with the data ingest, just getting as much data into the system at unlimited scale using new technology and data lakes and cloud scale, having a unified data lake for all the security information, getting into automated detection by having the data that we have across all of our customers and understanding how data looks in the wild, and testing and evolving and understanding how detection look like for our customers, making sure that before we publish something, we've looked at it, how it looks like in the wild, so we're able to push things to customers without having to tweak them, which make the detection engineering work orders of magnitude easier. So you don't have to tweak things. The amount of time it takes from the moment something is detectable to the time you actually deploy it in your environment is minimized. So you reduce your attack exposure. Things like the investigation flow, where you have something, but then you need to understand all the different bits and pieces to make sure that you understand what this alert is about, answering the questions of who did what, where, what is this entity, what do I know about it, what is this IP, making sure that you have all the information and have the confidence to address it. And this is something that we see analysts struggle with day in, day out. So we want to, what we call automatic investigation, bring all that information to the analyst, make it as approachable, as easy to consume as possible. Take that information, use it to bubble up the most impactful, and we're going to talk about a threat-centric pieces of alerts or data points, and correlate that and understand the entire attack flow. Don't just focus on a single piece of evidence. Try to understand how you connect the dots intelligently to understand the entire scope of the attack, to understand the kill chain that was involved. So that's Hunters in a nutshell. So what our customers are seeing as a result of this approach is they get unlimited data without compromising what data they need. So they make sure that they cover the entire attack surface at any given time and have maximum context when doing the triage investigation. Predictable cost, because we use this new technology. They automate the entire detection engineering. They empower the analysts with the insights and the results and the information they have with the full context. And what we're seeing from customers is they can take what is now a level 1 analyst and make it a level 2, and make it a level 3, because we give them this arsenal of weapons or defense weapons to use at their dispense. And we're making the analysts' lives just easier and nicer. It's can be a very grueling job, can be a grind, and we want to make it as efficient and effective as possible for any analyst out there.
Thank you so much for those introductions, Jon and Ofer. And I think we're now ready to move to the fireside chat. So let's start with the first question. What does it mean to be threat-informed / threat-focused? Jon, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, I run the Center for Threat-Informed Defense. So we've put a lot of thought into what it means to be threat-informed. At the very basic level, we define threat-informed defense as the systematic application of a deep technical understanding of adversary tradecraft and technology to improve your defenses. So simplifying that, it means that we're looking to continually understand adversary behaviors and use that knowledge to improve our defenses. We think of things as sort of a cycle where organizations that are implementing threat-informed defense are bringing in threat intelligence that's focused on adversary TTPs, so the specific behaviors that you see adversaries doing in their attacks. Using that threat intel to then evaluate your defenses against those TTPs. Do I have a defensive capability in place, a security control in place for this specific adversary TTP? So really driving that focus to evaluating defenses based on your ability to defend against specific behaviors. And then based on that, going ahead and implementing detections, protections for those specific behaviors. And the kind of tail end of that cycle is, now that we've implemented a protection or a detection, going ahead and validating by emulating those TTPs. I tend to sort of sum all of that up is like looking at your security program from the perspective of an adversary. What controls do you have to prevent that adversary? Have you tested and validated those controls to ensure that they really perform as you expect them to? Taking it kind of one level higher, ultimately, I think threat-informed defense, and we're kind of seeing this across the community, becomes sort of a lens that you can use to kind of understand and evaluate your security posture. It's frequently used by teams as a way to kind of think about security operations and security architecture, how you structure your organization, how you structure your architecture to make sure you have controls in place that'll mitigate or block the threats that you care most about. Organizations are using threat-informed defense to drive security strategy and investments. And very kind of near and dear to me is, teams around the world leverage threat-informed defense to really assess the effectiveness of their security controls and their security investments.
Thank you. Yeah, Ofer, do you want to add something to that? And I'm also going to task you to include in your answer, how can organizations leverage technology as well to support this type of mindset within the SOC?
Yeah, no, so the way I see it, and I relate a lot to what Jon said, the way I see it, kind of threat-centric is like trying to apply meritocracy to security operations, right? Because right now what happens is, like a lot of things in life, the thing that yells the loudest gets more attention, even if it's not the right thing to focus on, right? It doesn't give you the best ROI. At the end of the day, we're running organizations, running businesses. We need to make trade-offs all the time. We don't have infinite resources. If you have infinite resources, great, different conversation. But in case you don't, right, you need to make trade-offs. You need to make prioritizations, right? When you make prioritizations, you want to understand what gives me at every single point the best ROI. What is the biggest threat or the biggest thing or the riskiest thing I should be attending to at any given moment, right? So instead of saying, hey, from us, from like a SOC platform perspective, don't bring up the thing that generates the most alerts. Bring the most important alerts forward with the complete context of why, from a security perspective, it's the most important thing to attend to right now. For example, MITRE, I'm looking at like the attack chain, right? If I see something doing exfiltration, it's probably more important than discovery, right? This is what I want to look at first. If I have something that looks at higher fidelity and higher impact and touches the critical things, I want to put that first. If it looks like a stronger adversary, something that's a clear indication that it's going to create a big impact for my organization, I want to look at that first, not another alert that might have fired 5,000 times, but it's medium, low risk at best.
Yeah, I think kind of building on that, there's a next step that teams can take, and kind of to cut down the noise and the sort of high volume alerts and start thinking about maybe we have a defense upstream of that particular alert. That means that particular thing is really irrelevant to us, or maybe better example would have been downstream, but we have some other capability that's in that attack sequence that's going to prevent that threat. And so maybe you can deprioritize that and focus on making sure that other capability is really robust. But yeah, I think driving that whole decision making and prioritization based on threat intel and that understanding of adversary behaviors, that really is the foundation of threat informed defense.
Awesome. Thank you both. I'm going to move to the next question. What are some of the ways in which the community can collaborate in sharing knowledge and cybersecurity expertise in the benefit of everyone? Ofer, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I think this is a classic example, right? I think having a common ground and common language to speak through makes everything a bit easier. So, and the work that MITRE did with the attack framework is a great example of how to do it right. We've all seen, I want to say that, right, without naming names, we're all seen a lot of framework initiatives, and there's a very nice XKCD on it, right, which is trying to have 10 different frameworks converge into one, and you end up with 11 frameworks. Now, what the good thing about MITRE is that they put a lot of good thought into it, and they're very open about it, and you can submit your own, and the collaboration here worked well. So when you have this framework that you can refer to, have the common ground, you can start collecting different pieces of information from other sources that speak the same language, right? Because if I'm saying something, you saying something else, a lot of times I need to invest energy in translating what this means for me and what that means for you. We see that a lot with things like in risk scores, right? A high for you is not a high for that other thing. So we invested time building a more intelligent risk score engine. But when I say a TTP is X and you say TTP today is X, we're kind of speaking about the same thing. Helps drive a lot of integrations and work across different attack surfaces and different stacks of technology, and help the analyst. Again, we're at the end of the day, there sits an analyst in front of the screen and they need to understand what we're talking about and what is that threat. And we're all speaking the same language to them. I think that's fundamental, and that's why it's so successful.
Yeah, I think just kind of building on that a minute. I think the MITRE attack framework is really become foundational to enabling collaboration within organizations, across organizations. So we all know we're talking about the same thing, at least when it comes to adversary behaviors, right? And I think that the community has done a really good job of coming together and supporting the growth of the attack framework. One of the things I would like to see more of is kind of teams and organizations coming around to the idea of sharing a little bit more information about what they're actually seeing. So you can start to go beyond, these are known adversary behaviors and shift towards these are adversary behaviors that we're seeing in the wild now. Within the Center's research program, we have a project called the Sightings Ecosystem, where we're trying to collect real-world observations of adversary behaviors from organizations around the world so that we can create that very holistic view of adversary behaviors correlated to attack. And something like this, I think, is really important because, as you've heard over the last few minutes here, one of the big challenges that organizations, security teams face is simply resource limitations and bandwidth and the need to prioritize. For threat-informed defense, we really want to be able to prioritize based off of what adversaries are doing, and understanding what they're doing now is a critical next step beyond simply understanding the set of known behaviors. So I think that's a critical change that I'd like to see in a way in which the community can help themselves and help every security team out there. I'd also say, with the Center for Threat-Informed Defense, ultimately our mission is to advance threat-informed defense globally. We do that through our research program. We create R&D products and make them freely available. I just put a plug in, take a look at it, leverage what's out there, tell us what we got wrong, tell us what's working great for you. We love to hear about challenges and problems. Those drive the research program. That's what we focus on solving. So feel free to share those with us. Sometimes it's, people don't want to air their dirty laundry, but we love to hear about problems and challenges. Successes are great too, but problems and challenges are really what we're focused on solving and trying to do that for the world.
There's a call to action for everyone.
Exactly.
I want to ask Jon. So we've known anyone who's been deep in the security community. There are trust groups out there, right? Some organizations share information, some smaller, some bigger. We know the banks and the financial services, they're probably leaders of the pack in terms of sharing, threat intel and adversary information. And then the small organizations maybe are at the bottom of the chain, and it's very hard to get that information. Now, nobody is thinking about, security by obscurity, but there is something to say about how broad can we share the threat intel without risking, it leaking out, or, there is something about you. Do you know that I know that I know, right? Do you know that I know? Do you know that I know that you know? Or I think that's a lot of the reason that people kind of keep to themselves what they know, right? They don't want it to get, nobody wants to drop the 0 day into VirusTotal, right? We all know why.
Yeah, that's a challenge that we had to think through very carefully when we initially published the attack knowledge base. We had MITRE senior executives and others asking us, well, wait a second, if we publish this, aren't we helping the adversaries? Now they know what we know. Haven't we given them a cheat sheet in terms of things that they can do, right? But I think there's a realization that we all need to have, and this is what we had at the time too, which was, the reality is our adversaries actively collaborate and share tools. You see it happen all the time. They share, TTPs all the time. If we're not sharing and the cyber adversaries are sharing, we're all going to be really far behind. We really don't stand a chance. And so there is that risk of making it known that we know what they can do. But if we don't do that, we really have no way to kind of help the whole ecosystem move forward. That's why when I think about threat-informed defense, one of our primary goals and drivers is ultimately about increasing the cost to the adversary. And so you might say, now the adversaries know that we know about these 3 behaviors, but that also means that we can develop defenses against those 3 behaviors. And that means that they probably can't use those 3 behaviors. So they got to use another one, which means they have to go spend development time and research into developing new capabilities if they want to be able to succeed. And so that's a balance that we play. And I think that, the right thing is to kind of open up and continue to share around adversary TTPs. What we're seeing in the wild is critical for helping drive our defenses.
Makes sense.
Awesome. And Jon, you've mentioned a few of the projects that the center is currently working on, but what should people expect to see next? What should people look forward to in the next few months?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, at the core of the center is like this engine that kind of takes in problems, and we work to systematically develop solutions and release them. We have 4 projects that we're running right now. In 2023, I expect 10 or more project releases over the course of the year. Roughly every month or so, there should be a new release coming out from the center. Right now, a couple of the projects I'm excited about. I already mentioned the sightings project that's running. We're collecting data now, looking for data contributors to drive the next iteration of research there. That'll culminate in a report that includes things like, the top techniques that we've seen based on community-wide contributions that, cross geographic and sort of sector boundaries, that are vendor independent. So we can create that kind of holistic community view of what adversaries are doing. So that'll be something that we release sometime this spring. Just another sampling from our R&D program. We're working on a project that we've called Summiting the Pyramid. If we're all familiar with the Pyramid of Pain from David Bianco, where the tip of the pyramid is really focusing on adversary behaviors and detecting and understanding them. The foundation is things like IOCs that if your detections are focused there, they're easy for the adversary to evade, right? So trying to get towards the tip of the pyramid. So with that project, what we're trying to do is provide tools, resources, and methodology for detection engineers to systematically move their detection capabilities up the pyramid. So summiting the pyramid. So very much focused on improving the community's ability to detect adversary behaviors. And then I thought I would share a sample from the sort of the intel space. There's a lot of great threat intel products out there, and many of them are very hard for security teams to actually use and operationalize. We'd like to change that. We have a project that we've called CTI Blueprints that's trying to create a set of templates and guidance and a prototype to help teams that develop threat intel reports create reports that are more actionable and more easily operationalized by different security teams. So a red team may have a certain set of requirements for intel reporting that's maybe a little bit different than your threat intel team. We want to allow those teams that are creating threat intel reports to create tailored reports that align with the end user's needs. Other thing I'd say is, after 3 years, we've published about 22 projects now. We have a lot of projects up there. But what we really haven't gotten to is putting together that foundational set of resources that help people understand what threat-informed defense is and kind of how to implement a threat-informed defense strategy. So we'll be building out resources like that over the coming year. Very excited to get further community feedback on our work and use that to kind of drive and evolve what we do and how we do it.
That's awesome. And we look forward to seeing all of that. And well, we're getting almost to the end of the session, but I do have a final question for the both of you. And cybersecurity, well, a never quiet moment, constantly changing, surprises every other day. But what are some of the trends that you think we're going to be seeing in over the next few months? And how does this whole idea of the threat-informed, threat-focused mindset and strategy play into at least the imminent future of cybersecurity? Josh, you're gonna. Oh, Ofer, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I think if I look over the last few months, what I've seen is this global shift towards the whole community working to understand and defend against adversary behaviors, thinking about their TTPs, with this general goal of trying to increase the cost to adversaries. I think that as you look at recent technology trends and some of the sorts of threat intel sharing that has started to happen now that we're really focusing on adversary behaviors, I think there's an opportunity to start to evolve towards really doing predictive threat intelligence. And when I say predictive threat intelligence, I know that kind of sounds buzzwordy. I think it's very attainable. It's, in my mind, what it is understanding not just the individual adversary behaviors in isolation, but understanding the sequences of behaviors that adversaries use to conduct an attack, and kind of leveraging that knowledge to build out a corpus of those sequences of behaviors, or attack flows, as we call them, to then allow us to say, okay, we saw behavior A followed by B. We're very likely to see either C or D next. And so we can start to predict what will happen as we see specific behaviors occurring in our environments. And I'm very excited to continue to build out that and pursue that with the community.
Yeah, and when I look at kind of the near future, maybe the next year or two, I'm looking at three elements in the kind of the grand scheme of things. First is from the attack surface perspective, we've reached a point where the attack surface has gotten away from the people who need to look at the threats. It's gotten past the kind of critical point where there's too much to know for an average analyst. They need to be a jack of all trades to an extent that it's not effective, right? And that's one part of the problem. The operational problem is the amount of knowledge and expertise and knowledge required for them has gone beyond the tipping point. The second part is the macroeconomic situation that we're now in, which is very interesting when we look at cybercrime. You can say a lot about how everything affects everything in the economy and how the recession, what that will mean for IT budgets. We're not really sure what that means for cyber criminals and for fraud and for insider threats. Doesn't mean that it necessarily goes down in the same way that the economy goes down. Maybe it goes up because people are actually looking to take more advantage of lacking resources for security in some companies. I've seen researchers go both ways. Definitely not it doesn't necessarily go down in the same way. So it's going to be a challenge for organizations for sure, right? And the third thing is, what new technologies are we seeing that might be game changers in the landscape, either for an attacker or for a defender? And we've all been talking, not only in security, in every single field, we've been talking about AI and AI this and AI that. Hunters used to be called hunters.ai, right? But it was kind of fluffy up until this year when things really starting to get real, right? And again, we're looking at from the attacker's perspective, but also from the defender's perspective, right? I'm not aware of any single startup that's not looking at how can I use GPT or whatever technology right now to make things smarter, more automated, more approachable, scalable, you name it, right? So when I look at these three things, I'm seeing focus on, back to our previous point, on threat focus helps me be more effective because I have a huge attack surface. I need to understand what's the most important thing for me, what's the biggest risk. Attackers are not going away. It's actually, they're probably trying to ramp up their game right now because they think there's an opportunity. And how can this technology, how will it affect security operations when it matures into this area of technology? How would it affect the analyst's effectiveness and understand and either automate some of the things or understand things better because it has knowledge that not a single analyst can hold in their brain? And maybe how will bad actors use that? And when take a D player or a C player attacker and make them a B or an A player because the bar is set lower now for you becoming a cyber criminal.
Thank you so much. Well, I think we got to the end of the session. I want to wrap it up and say thanks to both Jon, Ofer. Special thanks to Jon and to the Center for Threat Informed Defense for the time and for the partnership, and of course to all the attendees. And we look forward to seeing you in future events. And yeah, thank you all. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks for having me. Thank you all.
Thanks, John.